So, welcome to the Conscious Experience. My name is Boris, and today I'm here with Mike. Mike, how are you, my brother?
I'm good, brother. How are you? I'm ready to freeze time.
Yes.
This time, not from lag.
Yeah. So today we're going to be, of course, talking about time. And our goal here on this channel is to bring you empowering, transformational perspectives that you can really bring into your moments to help to liberate suffering, to help to release more energy, to help you to feel more of that sense of belonging, mastery, just being here and being blessed. So let's dive into today's topic.
All right, let's start with definitions. So, what is time, Boris? What do you think time is?
Yeah, so I think that it's important when we talk about time to really appreciate that there's different kinds of time. Typically, when we say time, we're like, oh, yeah, meet you at this time. But I want to talk about chronological time, which is the time of the clock, right? Psychological time, which is something that's happening entirely divorced from the clock. Then we have kind of the biological time, which is essentially like how our bodies change. But we can also just talk about that as changing, like the changing of the seasons, the movement of the sun and the planets and stars and things like this. So I think each one of those is appropriate for us to kind of mention here. But what we really, of course, want to focus on is the psychological dimension of time, the actual like our experiential relationship, we may say, with time, right? So psychological time is basically a story. Okay, this is why this time can expand and contract, and it has a lot of flexibility. Einstein's theory of relativity. Who's it relative to? It's relative to the observer. So our time, psychological time, is based very much on the story that we're telling ourselves. We can feel like very fast in our mind. It could feel very slow, taking forever. Einstein used this, example of like, somebody's looking at something very beautiful, a beautiful person, a beautiful view, and like, oh, time just seems to stand still. And somebody who's got their hand, on a burning stove, oh man, time does not stand still. It's moving very fast.
Hmm. Yeah, nice. So in this episode, you'd like to focus on psychological time, right? So that we can maybe help our users, or our users, our our viewers. Don't use us, please. Um,
Yeah, so that's the dimension of time that we have the greatest control over. So what I want to touch in on this time that we have together is how do we navigate this? Because if we really slow down, we just take a look and say, okay, where does all of the anxiety that we feel come from? Where does all of the depression that we have come from? Where does the sense of suffering, the sense of lack, the sense of overwhelm and rush, where do these all come from? And what I want to offer us here is they all have a common root. And this is what we'll be exploring here in today's episode.
awesome. What do you think is the purpose of time?
So the purpose of time, it depends on, again, like who we ask, I guess. Like there's the natural time of, like back in, let's say, the ancient India, right? We have all of this ways of measuring time, right? The yugas, right? So these are, you can probably help me in this. You probably know better, Mike. Like the yugas, they're like ages that are measured in like innumerable years, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I read that, like, I mean, the earliest time measurement was basically observations of, like, you're talking about cycles or like cyclic pulsation of the natural world. So they were basically using patterns, whether it was like changes from day to night or like season to season, to build calendars or whatever it is to start measuring time. So yeah, it was based on observations of, am I lagging?
Yes, you are. I
Time.
was thinking.
Yeah, so essentially like these cycles, whether it's day or night or season to season, or whether you have like the yugas, which are like in millions of years in time, it was basically pulsations of I don't know if why this is like for me, time honestly is a very strange subject. I think when you get into the quantum physics of what time is, it becomes really strange. I know we're really just focusing on maybe the psychological aspect, but I really don't know what time is. But it's something that I guess we're going to explore through this conversation.
Yeah.
Some say it's tied to the fabric of nature, which is what Einstein said, meaning that um, you can't have time without space. So
Yes. Well, I think like on a very basic level, time is change. Okay. If there were no change, then the time would be imperceptible. It's not possible to have time without change. Okay. And so what is the purpose? Like in a general human sense, it's like the purpose is to measure change. It's like, like, well, I'll go from here to there and it will take X number of units of time. Um, but time also has a little bit of a diabolical purpose in some ways, in the sense that time is about disillusion and death, right? It's like everything in time is here to be essentially destroyed, dissolved, to die, right? And so one way for us to really be able to approach this is, why is there this dimension of timelessness? Like we've heard about the now, about being present, about time stopping for certain people, and they write about it, and mystics, etc. What is it talking about? It's talking about the alternate dimension that is also right here. So one model that has been shared with me, I don't remember exactly where I saw it, but it's the model of the cross. So we have the horizontal plane, and this horizontal plane is time. It's the time that's linear. Here we go. This is now, and this is the future, and that's the past, and we're kind of going this way. So um, that is time. That is this change. And now, when we're talking about change, we're also talking about this manifest reality. This manifest reality is that we in India refer to it as Maya, as illusion, as the play, right? Um, so it is intersected by a vertical dimension. A vertical dimension, we may call it time, but it's a vertical dimension that is experientially timeless. So this vertical dimension is now. And so this is why we, at the same time as being right here and now in time, we can also tap into timelessness. So we actually have this capacity within ourselves, this natural aspect of consciousness, and we can kind of dive into the actual mechanics of it, but it is, again, very readily available. So the purpose of time is essentially for us to have this experience which is not available in timelessness.
yeah, it reminds me of like they say like the great yogis of India or like any sort of mystic was able to, with each blink of their eye, they were able to create reality, sustain reality, and then dissolve reality all within one blink, moving them essentially into a timeless state. So as most people live in the past or future, they were able to do this all with each moment to moment blink. So
Yeah. So I want to just maybe let's take a look at a person's normal experience of time, because like, to make this practical, we got to really take a look at what is our subjective experience. What purpose does time play there? What is its role, right? What do you think?
so I mostly when I think of time, I think of like you were talking about, which is the past and the future. And I know that when I'm in the past or the future, I'm suffering, whether I think I'm not suffering or something. But there's always like in the future, there's a gap between where I want to be and where I currently am. And in the past, maybe it's regret or guilt or something like that, which I don't really have. I don't live in the past too much, but I would say that's the majority of where people live.
Yeah.
So mostly suffering. Obviously, there's past good memories. In fact, one very one guy I watched at a talk here in Vancouver, he's very successful. He said, "Life is only your memories," meaning life is really your past. And he has some validity to that, but maybe he's not living in the now. Yeah.
It's all valid. Yeah. So like, let's see this here. what we're actually experiencing normally day to day without let's say present moment awareness, without a greater lucidity. So I would say most of the planet is experiencing something like this. I have a story ongoingly in my mind. The past is a memory, but I keep on bringing the past here in order to understand my present experience, right? Very natural. This is why we go to school. We have different learnings so that we can meet a new experience with greater wisdom, perhaps from the past. And then there's this moment that we call the present, typically very skipped over moment. But if somebody is aware in the present, most of the time they are experiencing their story. They're using the present to get to a future and to get away from a past. So basically, our experience of time is such that we are trying to fix things or get away from things in the past. And we're the things, of course, that this is the Buddha's classic aversion. And then we are hoping and craving after a experience of pleasure and fulfillment in the future that will hopefully just make the past all worth it, and everything is just going to be all really beautiful. It'll all make sense in the end, right? And so we have this hope. So actually, this whole dimension of time is the container of suffering. It's the container of everything that we don't want, but also everything that we think we do want, right?
Yeah. And it probably has something to do with death and our fear of death. Like the most searched for term on YouTube that we were just talking about before this started was time management. And people feel like the need to somehow take what they're given, they don't even know what they're given, and somehow manage it to optimize it. Yeah, I don't know. We're trying to manage something that doesn't exist, man.
Yeah. So we're doing this though for a purpose. So like, yeah, of course. I mean, we're not like discounting the fact that, yeah, you have certain goals, you're working towards a project. Yeah, of course you need to basically like write it on your schedule and show up for it. That's the basic time management. That's how you manage it. Most people are actually, when they're searching for time management, they're actually it's a misnomer. They're really trying to find out how to achieve something, but they think that it's because we have a time-based story. They think, oh, if I just manage time right. But it's much more about managing your energy. It's much more about like managing your vision and doing the right thing rather than doing the thing right. It's like many people are trying to do things so that they can in the future get to another place. Meanwhile, they're suffering. There's a lot of confusion in the way that human beings navigate their their journey of time. And this confusion can all be resolved or at least met. We can have a starting place in what we might call the now. And the now is it's not a dimension of time, because in the time we have past tense, present tense, and future tense, right? And we kind of went over these, right? The past tense is your memories. The present tense is basically your imagination. It's a story. It's a narrative that you keep telling to yourself, like, I am coming from there and I am going to there. That is, in synopsis of what it is. And then the future is this fantasy where you hope to finally get the love you never got from your parents, from your coworkers, from your wife, from your husband, from whatever. And there it's going to be all resolved. Whew. That is a lot to carry. And that's why, many people are feeling this overwhelm, feeling anxiety, feeling depressed, feeling this burden, because it is a huge burden. Even just like talking about it, it's just like this weight of this big insolvable problem that I somehow must solve in order to, rectify everything that's gone wrong.
Yeah, this is great. So this kind of reminds me of like a business analogy or success or a financial analogy. Like, when we study mentors that tell us you have to set a vision, super clear vision, and you might think that's in the future, and you might create like mountains of obstacles in your way that don't exist. But really, the best way to achieve that vision is to do it in the now. And so like you have to really feel into the now. This is not a new concept. I know many of you that are probably watching this channel have have learned this, like get into the feeling tone now, because it's never going to be in the future, right? It's going to be in the
Yes.
now. So how can we be free of time, Boris? How do we free ourselves from time and step into the now? Or is there a difference between the now and the present moment?
Yeah, I mean, well, that difference we touched on a little bit, like the difference between the present moment and now is that the present moment is still a tense of time, right? And time is tense. That I mean, language has its own kind of like wisdom and revelatory quality to it if we really just pay attention to where the words that we're using for different things. So time tense is always going to have this. No, and whenever you are relating to things from the point of view of there being a lot of time, a little time, any kind of time, there'll always be some kind of tension. Another tension that comes in is the fact that you are actually leaving the present moment where your body is, and you're going to the psychological sense of like myself as a psychological little ego. Your ego is not your body. Your body is the world. It's like part of this experience. Your ego is this additional, like, um, some kind of like amalgam of body identity, this like all of these different fantasies, and it's basically the psychological mask, the psychological identity. But it doesn't exist now, and that's why it's so hard to find the now, because we always want to try and bring our personality and our ego into it, but the ego can't exist without a story. So to find our way to the now, we just have to be honest with what the real truth is. Like, for example, um, let's say I have a project to do tomorrow, and I'm like, oh, okay, maybe I'm not gonna have enough time, and I better get this, or I might be thinking about a fight that I had with my lover, and I'm like, oh yeah, and I'm arguing with her, and I'm like, but that was 2 hours ago. Like, what is happening? So what's happening is um, this departure from reality, departure from the truth. And if we say, okay, what is the truth of this moment? The truth is I'm sitting in my office and I am thinking about a fight that I had, and I'm arguing in my own head from both sides. Or the truth is that here I am, I have a project that I can do or not do. It has both, certain consequences, and I have my own free choice. I get to engage it now. I get to determine, how much time I want to give to it. This is where I'm sitting at right now. What's the overwhelm? Where's the fear? Where's the fight? Where's the stress? And then you say, oh, but all of those things, yeah, but now you've left again. It's just like, notice what's actually happening. Actually, I am literally just right here. I am breathing. If you find your way to this moment, just this experience of like, what is real? There's a light over there. There's a microphone here. Suddenly, these become like anchors of presence. And you start to feel yourself, wow, okay, well, all of that tense of time starts to feel like, oh man, well, it's not really there anymore. It's like that. When you are in time, when you're in that sense of strain, it's like you're being used by time. It's like you're not using it at this point. There's no talk of management. You are inside of it. How can the fish use water? It can't. It's intrinsically part and in it. So you can only really manage time. You can only really express your creative ability, your vision, when you just relax out of that, and you get to you get to then step forward and see it anew. See it. In business we say, working on the business versus working in the business. We have to be able to step back. So looking at time in the different areas of our life, I think, can really help us to make it more palpable, because what we're talking about here is not just a fancy concept or like a nice feeling thought. Oh yeah, we can step out of time. Oh yeah, but like I really want it to be practical for all of us, because there is a true relief. There is a true shift in the physiology of your body when you are engaged with psychological time, and you are in this in this, basically it's kind of just like a mind story, and when you come out of it, your breath changes, the tension in your shoulders and your muscles change. So it's really important that we actually be able to find it. And even, let's say, take a look at the place where it's most important, is like work, right? Work, business, entrepreneurship, this obsession with time management. It's no accident that it's there. It's there to reveal some truth to us. So, like, what I would like to appreciate is that when you are working in psychological time, there is a stress happening in the body to whatever degree. Like, the stress that's happening in the body is not something that is what we would say eustress, which is actually helping you to grow. Because that's like, let's say, when you're exerting your body, it's like, it's good stress, you're exercising. But when you're just like day by day, it's like, it's like eating away at you, and you're like, oh, I don't have enough time. I don't have. It's basically this belief of lack elevated into this dimension of like time. And it's like, wait a second, don't you know that actually everybody has the same time? Sometimes I have to actually actively remind myself of this. It's like, oh, I have all of this, and I have more tasks at the end of the day than like time. And I'm like, I did what I could do. Well, I mean, this is what I have. It's like, how can we bring more of this sense of abundance to our relationship with time instead of bringing scarcity? Because actually, time is freaking, it's there. It's like there's 24 hours. There's all of this just is unfolding, and we either bring scarcity or we bring like some kind of fullness to it.
Mm-hmm. The quote, a blip in time, is a very humbling thing, I think. Like, like, instead of focusing on like your lack or limitation of time and how little life you have left to live, or time pressure to have children, or whatever the time pressure you have to meet a deadline, that idea of like, look at your entire life, and like you said, time is always there. It's like the eternity of time. It's sitting there. It's much bigger than you think it is. And so for me, that's very humbling to see, which makes you, I think, a better person in general when you can step out of time.
Yeah, it makes you aware of what's actually here. Like, so much of our, when we're caught up in time, we miss relationships. We kind of are like in this. It's, I think, if like any other being on earth that's not aware of our stupid time game would watch us, they would think like we're crazy. It's like we're rushing to things, we're pushing people out of the way, we're doing all of these things in the name of what? Because in the end, like, this is the thing that I really appreciate about some of the shamanic traditions and even Eastern traditions. It's like, in shamanism, they often talk about death as an ally. Death as an ally. Now, what if we bring that into this workplace, into entrepreneurship, and we understand like how they talk about it is like they consult death. Death is always here with them. And they turn to it and say, oh, what's important? It becomes like this, reminder. This day might be your only day. Is it really that where are you rushing to, right? What is really true and important? And if we bring this to the business arena, it's like we think, oh, I'm never going to get anything done. No, it's like, how much more could you get done if you're not doing it from a sense of lack? If you're not bringing that energy of not enoughness, if you're not bringing that stress and overwhelm, but instead you're showing up in this like timeless dimension, and you're like, beautiful, here is my vision. I'm here to execute it. And time is not even a factor. It's just you and you in this what we might call flow, in this unity of expression.
Yeah, one of my favorite like time management things was by a guy named Ed Milet, and he basically splits his day into three. So his morning is a full cycle of like uh, everything that you would fit in your typical day, and then he has 3 different days, so morning, evening, or afternoon, and then evening. And I think that's pretty cool too, because that also helps alleviate stress by shortening time, which is different than what we're talking about. Because I feel like a lot of people feel like time is slipping away. So at the end of their day, they're like, oh my God, what did I get done? Or at the end of the year, they're like, oh my God, I just had the same year that I had for the last 10 years. You know what I mean? So shortening that time, and it allows you to live more, I guess, within that time. Because again, it's all imaginative, right? Somebody made up 24 hours.
Bringing awareness to it, which is what he sounds like he's doing, right? By really designing it, etc. But bringing awareness, consciousness, infusing your moment with consciousness, like, hey, no, what am I doing here? It makes you come out of this psychological time, and it makes life very joyful. There's something else that's so important to mention here. Like, let's now turn maybe to spirituality, right? To our spiritual aspirations for enlightenment and empowerment and insight. And one thing that I know about the now is that this is the only time, this is the only possible channel of grace. When we're talking about life under grace, meaning that and this is true of all of us. Doesn't matter what religion you are, whatever it is, what you've done, what your sins are, how much you know or meditate or anything. It's that in this moment, you have everything you need. Always. You cannot, like, if you have $1 billion in this moment, you are equal to the one that has $0 or negative billion, because in this moment, what can you do with it? You can only do what you are doing. You are literally just here. But if you go beyond this numbed out version of the now, which is just like what all of the mindful people are like, oh yeah, now, yeah, this is good. It's a good starting place. But let's bring love into it, because not bring love into it. Let's discover that love is here also. It's not just this dead, silent now. It is a living, incredibly silent, but incredibly living and full of grace now, where you can deeply commune with God. You can deeply commune and understand, wow, I need nothing. All of the promises of the scriptures will be fulfilled right now if we just take time to realize this. Like, all of it. Even through just becoming still and aware of the now, we start to open ourselves to our own timeless identity, which is the awareness, right? So right now we're hearing voice, we're seeing movement happening, color, sounds, but there's something that is completely still. And if that something wasn't still, we would not be able to see the contrast between the sounds and the movement and all the change, which is what time is essentially measuring, right? And that which is witnessing change. There must be an existential kind of difference, because the changing, it keeps changing, and that which is witnessing it cannot be changing along with it. And this is what also perhaps accounts for this whole experience of memory. Here I am in this body. I used to be, teenage and then preteen and then a little toddler. So we have here this opportunity to really become. And what is it? What action do we take? There's no real action. It's not like you're doing something with your body to come into the timeless moment. It's not like you're praying to God and saying, oh, please, there's no trick to it, because we are actually already and always here. What the gurus in India will do is they'll say, hey, run around the block, wash my toilet, and then come back here and you'll be in the now. And the person is like, oh, yes, okay, I will do these things. And then they come back and the guru is like, oh, Shaktipa, you are in the now. I feel it, guru. That's all that's happening. All of the spiritual, work and everything we're doing. I'm not saying that we don't do it. It is just like basketball. It is a game. It is part of this experience. But the amazing thing is that you have a timeout anytime you want, every time you want, and you can even live in timeout for as long as you choose to. I think this is really important for us to be highlighting. It's not talked about. There's no gap in our mind that's like, oh yeah, wait, let me check. Am I in the present moment? Is this the present moment? What am I? No, I'm fighting all kinds of pasts and futures. Oh, I don't have to. What a relief.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when you recognize like a miracle, I don't know if you can relate, right? Like when you recognize a miracle, it feels like it has to be done in that space of like recognizing this timeless now. It can't be done in the future. You can't recognize a miracle in future. You can recognize that a miracle has happened, but that feeling that it gives your body, that grace, is that like inspiration is done in the present moment. So, and I think you're right. It's like bringing any anything that we're talking about right now is like whether you want to shorten time, lengthen time, whatever you want to do with time, you just have to do it consciously, I think. Like, and that will make all of your experiences better in your life. So I think you were saying earlier an example which sparked something, which is like you're spending time with somebody, a friend or a loved one. Well, your natural instinct is that you're going to see that person again. But if you were just to consciously realize that you might not see that person again, you might give that person like a longer hug. You know what I mean? You
Yeah.
might yeah, cherish the moment a little bit better.
Time in relationship is another really important aspect. It's like what we do to each other and uh to even ourselves in the name of time is pretty, it's pretty ferocious. It's like it's like the truth is we don't need time, right? That like that the like if we're talking about basic needs, like what do we need in this moment? The fact that we have air, breath, water, food, and consciousness. It's like we don't need it. But how many times I myself has said, "Oh, I need more time. Oh, you're taking time from me. Oh, and I'm like, hello, what am I even talking about? But in a certain level of our psychological structures, it's like it makes a lot of sense. It's like, oh, if you're taking my time, then this can't take. So realizing this timeless dimension, bringing it into your relationships in such a way as just to see like, wait a second. Yeah, what if I never see this person again? What if today is my last day? How am I going to meet this moment with this person? What's truly important? And of course, not every day is our last day. So I also heard this kind of argument of like, oh, well, if I live that way, I'm not going to be doing my work. I'm not going to be doing anything. But what if you're here to actually fulfill your vision, to actually leave a legacy, to really like be like, okay, what is my difference? Why am I here? Then that part is also important. Only if you're doing some kind of medial work that you don't care about, then you might say, I would never work a day in my life. I love it. Like if you're doing something that's so important to you that feels alive in your heart, then that becomes the same thing. And then that whole experience of like death, then maybe not having it tomorrow, makes these moments meaningful too. So it's I think time and death, which is interesting that it emerged in our conversation like this, that they seem to be paired together like this. They actually can be tremendous allies to help us to tune into what is truly meaningful, like what is truly like to our heart's content, to our heart's joy, and to be able to pursue that. Because again, like maybe there won't be tomorrow. So like what's the deal? Like what are we doing all of this for? Mm.
For helping you guys and the benefit of humanity. I wouldn't spend my time with anything else other than this podcast right now. It's cool that we can not only thrive in time that is sped up, like when we're doing something that we're super passionate about, like we're doing our work or whatever, we can move fast, relatively fast through time, or we can be thriving in more slow time. Like one example would be, most people in this world, they walk pretty fast, like probably faster than they need to walk, just because
Mm.
they're trying to get somewhere, right? They're trying to move through space and time. But just one conscious practice would be to do like the Buddhists do, which is consciously really, you can like really slow down your walk. You can even like super emphasize like taking a step that looks like this. And what you'll realize is that you feel weird and awkward. And I wonder why that is. It's probably because you're so used to killing the moment, the immediate moment with and filling it with a future moment, that it feels like strange to be in this now present time consciously. You know what I mean? So I think that's a cool practice where you can really drastically slow down, like walking down the street.
Yes. It reminds me of I love that practice, by the way. Yeah, it's worthwhile. But it reminds me of something that my mentor once said to me. Is like uh, I don't remember like the exact space, but it's like he's like, meditate every day for 20 minutes. And if you don't have time for that, then meditate for 40 minutes.
Yeah.
And there's tremendous wisdom in this because the part of you that doesn't have time is this screaming banshee ego inside of you. It is really, there's another quote that says your ego is not your amigo. And what it is it's basically it's basically like the most limited version of you uh trying to lead your life, trying to like make itself bigger, trying to like hide its mistakes. It's like totally not worth listening to. But what we do when we're meditating, it's a very incredible experience. It's hard. I don't know why or how it happens, but when we meditate, there is a tremendously more expanded sense of time. It's like when if you really feel as an entrepreneur, or as anybody who's like listening to this, and you're feeling like, wait, like, can I really like, what would change my experience of my daily time? And it is spending time in the now. It's like to take the time that you have. Let's say you have 10 minutes, 5 minutes, even 20 minutes. Take that time and give it to the now. And the way you give it to the now is you just sit down in meditation. Oh, you just sit down, close your eyes, listen to silence. Silence is always now. Like, this is it. And the moment you notice you're going somewhere else, you're just like, oh, that was a thought about some past or future. I'm just here now. This thought I don't want. I just want to be here now. That experience is going to do something that you will notice in terms of your relationship to time. Like the tension is going to disappear. Well, at least it's going to lessen. I don't have like this pitch deck for meditation, but what I'm saying is that as we begin to discover this experience and abide in it, we take on its qualities. And the more we abide in it, the more of its qualities we take on. And so we come into time with this timeless presence, with this sense of like freedom, with the sense of vastness. And then it will close in on you again. Well, no problem, because you can always refresh yourself. You can always reintroduce yourself to what you really are and where you really are, which is always going to be this timeless moment.
Nice. Yeah. And this channel, we're going to always encourage meditation as the fundamental base to shift your reality and benefit your life and everything. So that's great that you brought that into the conversation. I'm wondering why we as humans are so uncomfortable with the now and the present moment. And just something that maybe we can start with is like, is it because we're afraid of something that's new, which happens again with each moment? And we're also afraid of death, which we've talked about already. So something ending in each moment. I wonder if I can read you this quote by it's by Eckhart Tolle, which is like the master of sitting and watching ducks in the present moment.
I love it.
He's got this book. Here's a quote. He says, so I just want to preface this quote by saying it mentions life, which is something new, and it also mentions death. And then it also mentions the sacredness of this moment. So here's the quote. When we go into a forest that has not been interfered with by man, our thinking mind will see only disorder and chaos all around us. It won't even be able to differentiate between life, which is good, and death, which is bad anymore, since everywhere new life grows out of rotting and decaying matter. So you're in a forest and it's got life and death, and you have no idea. It's confusing to you. It says, only if we are still enough inside and the noise of thinking subsides, that we can become aware that there is a hidden harmony here, a sacredness, a higher order in which everything has its perfect place and cannot be other than what it is and the way it is. Nice. So pretty crazy, right? That's kind of like all you can see is confusion and chaos, which is probably why people are uncomfortable in the now. And in that confusion and chaos, there's life and there's death in each moment. So
yes, I want to maybe just say, I appreciate that perspective. I also want to say that we just don't have a context for this moment. Like, there is no context for the now, because think about like human conversation, our society. Like, when we talk about it, we're always talking about what happened, what's going to happen, what are you going to do, and it's almost inevitable. Like, there's no books about the now, there's no movies about the now, because What we're interested in is drama. We're interested in like something is coming from somewhere, is going to unfold, the hero's journey, right?
Yeah, we're
Like we
interested
are,
in tension, like you're saying, tense
yeah,
tension. Yeah.
yeah. Well, that's what every movie, every book is about. That it's like, if I'm talking about like fictional, like literary works, it's like we want to know. It's like the suspense, the what's gonna happen. What we get juice out of it. There's emotional juice. We get juice out of the drama of our life. And it takes something. Sometimes like the drama is great and we're like, oh, it's so much juice, this is so great. And then like it eventually starts to wear on you and wear on you. And some people just like try to do whatever they can with substances, with distraction, like, okay, make it bearable, make it bearable. Okay, it's fine, it's fine. um but some lucky ones get knocked the F out, and by the stress of life. And I get to talk to these people, almost every day, people who have like all kinds of like terminal disease, breakdowns, like just not knowing like where to go now in life. And it's that I call that fierce grace. Like for me, I mentioned in one of our previous episodes, my mom passing away was that incredible shakeup. Like my system got, and it's like, oh, can't put it back together. And that is this amazing opportunity to say, okay, well, what else is there apart from, chasing this illusion? But so long as the illusion appears to be reality, this is why the present moment is uncomfortable. It's like, well, what am I doing here? Reality's over there. I'm missing it. I got the fear of missing out. I got I got to get into action. I'll be left behind. Early bird gets the worm. Like it's literally our whole society is based on this whole idea of uh basically scarcity and how we're going to use time to liberate ourselves. Time for salvation. It's somehow going to be at the end times. The whole thing is built around this whole concept. But but it's all optional. You don't have to watch the movie. Like, yes, you can watch the movie and there it goes and it's going to take time, or you just click and you do the same thing on your mind. You click. And then something starts to come in again. But if we just start to anchor, to root ourselves in here, in in what I would call is the only sanity, which is like literally what's happening right now, then it becomes familiar. Like I like Joe Dispenza's definition of meditation. He says that in Latin, meditation comes from a word that means basically to become familiar with. Okay, so meditation is literally becoming familiar with the truth, becoming familiar with what happens if I don't touch anything, without me trashing about what is the truth of this moment. And yeah, only I think after a deep introduction does it become even interesting. But even at that point, I mean, I've had my introduction many, many years ago. I can't say that I live in the now all the time. I certainly catch myself. I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing? That was 2 hours ago. I'm still arguing with her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's crazy that you can catch yourself consciously by your own power of your own free will, but there's also an inherent mechanism in the universe that, like you said, if you get off kilter, will almost remind you that to come back to the present moment. And it does this through, I think, life and death again, like we're talking about. So some examples would be like your mom dying. That's a death, right? It's going to shock the system and you're going to have to come back to the current moment to find out what's true. And then also, like if you had a newborn baby, like something so magical and special where you see life emerge, it's going to put you very much so in the present moment. That's like very extreme of life and death, or like your relationship ending. That's like an end of something. So yeah, the universe has grace built into it inherently to kind of snap you back to the present moment, I think.
Yeah, whenever anything goes wrong in the narrative of our life, in the story that we tell ourselves about who we are, where we're coming from, where we're going, that is the opportunity, because there is a break. It's like a break in, oh, what? I thought it was gonna, my expectations are broken. I'm disappointed. um, and that is giving you this like natural stop in this also, I was smiling earlier because it reminds me, there's a teacher that I spent a little bit of time with. His name is Keith Dowman, and he carries the Dzogchen tradition to the West, and he's got very beautiful practices. But one of the basic practices of Dzogchen Buddhism, which is considered the top Buddhism, whatever expression or practice, is as you're sitting there, you're like sitting there. He's getting you to do these visualizations of this, like, Om Mani Padme Hum symbols or whatever, and then you're sitting there, and he's like, and like people, he does it from his deep, deep belly, and people like fall off their chair.
Boris, that was so loud that your mic barely even caught it. It was such a high. But yeah, that sound is essentially like a really loud awakening. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's meant for, some people will be like, oh man, what's that? That's really upsetting. Why are you doing this? I'm supposed to be meditating here. I actually did this once with a friend. And she got up and left. She was so pissed off. I had to explain it later. But anyway, that moment is the moment, like when you have surprise, when you have this like sudden interruption to your experience. This is the exact moment where that wave, that continuation breaks, and you have in that moment the ability to witness reality. That is the way that the Dzogchen tradition talks about it. So put is meant to cut the continuity of time so that you have, and you're going to go back in. But that is what it's for.
Yeah, that I know you've done that to me before, like in our early relationships. I remember sitting on a log or something when we were camping, and then we were like in the moment. I thought I was meditating. I was meditating, and then you did the putt, and immediate reaction is like, "Whoa, what was that?" But then also realizing that it does bring much more consciousness to the moment. Like most meditators, I would say, are, yes, they're conscious of the environment, but there's levels to being conscious of what's happening, right? So
yes,
noticing your heartbeat, noticing like sounds entering. Like I think in order for the putt not to disturb your meditation, it has to be a true awareness of sounds entering and sounds leaving, no matter how fast or loud they are. You know what I mean? And knowing that exists in reality. It's great.
Yes.
Great practice.
My wife and
everybody gets putted.
My wife and I made this into a practice. Sometimes in our relationship, we putt each other. And we can tell, like, basically from this, and it just emerged as a game. But like, what I can tell is that, like, when I react to the putt with a startle response, I wasn't here.
Yeah.
I was like, whatever I'm doing, even if I'm like meditating, it's like so easy in meditation to just like, whoa, and you're like in this like dream space, and you're like, I'm meditating, it's feeling really nice. But if somebody puts you, you'll realize that you were not anywhere near silence or this moment or anything.
Yeah, I love that. All right, is there anything else that we can share with the audience that would benefit them around their experience of time? I think we've covered a lot. Like, you can check out some of our previous episodes. I think we mentioned that all anxiety is based on time in the future, and then all depression is really just time in the past. So yes. Anything else that you can think of, like the 2 to 5 second practice or something interesting?
Yeah. I mean, this is what we want to really probably leave everybody with is, number one is, of course, just sit down and meditate, like literally just listening to silence. Just do it. Just try it out. Just like, even if it feels like torture for you, just put the timer for 5 minutes, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and just listen to silence. And you're going to hear different sounds, but notice that all the sounds are coming against the background of silence. And you will find the silence this way. This will imbue your consciousness with stillness, with timelessness, with silence. And you'll have way more clarity. You'll have way more poise, way more bandwidth, way more patience. In the moment, you can't really putt yourself. But sometimes in my mind, the putt comes, it's like, putt.
It's the mantra putt.
I'm like,
that's my mantra. Putt.
Let me make sure I'm present. I had a friend who named her car Putt Putt. Anyway, but then there's this very basic practice from the freedom teachings, which she called them the short moments of clarity, which means that basically you interrupt your thought stream on your own without a put. So it just like, let's say my conversation here is a thought stream and I go, and then I'm going to keep going. So it's like, it's for this 2 to 5 seconds, we're just taking the, whatever is the conversation, whatever is the storyline. Here I am, I'm Boris, I'm going to just be still for 2 to 5 seconds. You can take this another level down. This practice comes from Joel Goldsmith, and it's called practicing the presence of God. It's exactly, pretty much the same thing, except you stop everything, and it could be for just a few seconds, but you stop everything. He says you just stop, sit down, or just like be still, and just say, I'm listening. And you're speaking to God, you're speaking to the universal intelligence, whatever way we want to construe this, but you're just open to what is beyond your little ego identity and say, okay, I'm listening, speak to me. And again, and you may not hear anything. It's not that you're listening for a voice to talk to you, but you give that space to creativity. You give that space for something new to come in. And that is also another way to build wisdom, to build a deeper sense of listening. So you can even hear when other people are speaking, you can hear in between the lines, etc. Another beautiful, powerful practice.
Nice.
And then, of course, the classic one is a breath. Yeah. Like your breath is always now. So like breathing in now, breathing out now. So, I also tried this with Buddhist mindfulness approach. It's very interesting. They say, like, as you're breathing in, I know I am breathing in, breathing out, I know I am breathing out. And you just stay in that simple knowing. You don't go anywhere beyond this, but you breathe in knowingly and you breathe out knowingly. And this just keeps you deeply anchored to your experience of the breath. Nothing but this. I just know that I'm breathing in right now, and I just know that breathing out right now. In breath, I know it's the in breath. Out breath, I know it's the out breath. This is if sitting in silence sounds daunting, then this is another very easy way to create that anchor and to start to make your way here now.
Beautiful. 3 very practical ways to come back to the now. I just want to share that for a lot of people, just focusing on the breath, which again is the one of the easiest way to anchor yourself back into the now, is a very difficult thing, because that is in itself a very concentrative practice of meditation. So the first step is just really being conscious that you're not able to just focus on your breath, and noting that whenever you're not able to just use your mind, which is the tool that you should be using, not being used by, to just focus on your breath, you're not able to do it for majority of you, I bet. So just the first step is just being aware that you're suffering most of the time. And then I just want to say, for the 2 to 5 second thing, you had given an example where you're doing something and then you suddenly stop. Yeah, so for the 2 to 5 second thing, you had given an example where you're like active and then you pause. Another one I just really like, 2 examples that I'm sure many people can apply, is you're sitting in front of nature and you're sitting quietly, and you're able to just now, because even sometimes when we're still overthinking in time, right? So you just pause for 2 to 5 seconds, whether you're looking out in the ocean, and you just stop all labels that the sun is shining, that the water is beautiful. You just stop all labels, and that also works pretty well. Also, like if you're in a coffee shop, I know a lot of you are in a coffee shop, you're watching people, you're doing everything, just 2 to 5 seconds, just pause, stop labeling things that are moving, and just breathe and just notice that you're alive in this moment. All right, so I hope that those 3 practical tips helped you. Maybe we can end with a meditation, Boris, just to anchor all this in.
Yeah, let's do that. So I'm going to invite you to, which is going to be here for a couple of minutes. I'm going to invite you to close your eyes if that feels comfortable. Take a deep breath. Exhale. Allow your body to relax. Let your shoulders relax, forehead, eyes. Allow your face to relax, your arms. In the beginning, people use meditation for relaxation, but masters use relaxation for meditation. And so we want to begin to cultivate this mastery. So we're making our body available, allowing this tension to drain from the body. Just consciously, once again, scan your body, head to toe. See if there's anywhere you can relax and open more. And we're going to begin to make our way to this moment right here, this moment in which words appear and disappear. In this moment, you cannot make sense of anything that I'm saying, because in order to make sense, you would have to have the beginning of the sentence joined together with the end of the sentence. Let the sentence go. Allow these words to be words that just simply appear as sound, as the birds sound, as the ocean sounds. These words are not any different. But we can begin to use sound to discover this present moment. As I intentionally introduce more and more space, you can begin to notice that in the gaps of silence, a different quality begins to emerge. I want you to, rather than paying attention to these words now, pay attention to that quality. Get a sense for what it is like to have no content, to feel just the presence, which is synonymous with the now. And now relax into this presence, into this now. There's no need to be stiff about it. There's nothing to hold. There's nothing to understand, to find. We are at the end of all seeking. And allow your belly now to expand with your breath. Allow your body to expand. Feel yourself at home here, now. Home with no walls, home with no boundaries, home with no location. Can you see it? Can you feel it? Sometimes when we're here, sort of a tension begins to creep in. Tension for trying to hold on or trying to understand. If you feel this, just take another deep breath. And feel your energetic self become fat as a Buddha, so deeply rooted in this moment that you are immovable. Nothing can hurt you here. You have everything that you need here. Just for this split, I don't even want to say second, for this split moment, notice that you have it all. Notice that you have no needs. Notice that you can't even do anything to make any difference in this moment. Perhaps a future moment, but in this moment, it can't be any different than it is. Take a moment to just appreciate it, the completeness that's already and always here. And just to check if you're here in this moment. So with that, I want to invite you to slowly and gently open your eyes. And If that putt startled you, then you are in a dimension of mind that can also mimic this present moment by being very quiet. But if you pierce it, there's even a greater spaciousness, a greater grace, greater openness. I hope you enjoyed that.
Thank you guys so much for watching, and we appreciate your time and your presence in this moment. And may you continue the rest of your day in this timeless, eternal bliss. And may you find all the joy of your future visions right here in this everlasting moment. So with that, we will see you next week. God bless. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.